As a speaker, I often have a table set up in the back of the room, or I'll be displaying my books at events that I'm attending. And I'm always looking for creative ways to make my table look more appealing. So recently, I decided I was going to buy a bookshelf that would provide some creativity for my table. And I got to tell you, I received the box and I was super excited to assemble this bookshelf. So, what did I do? In classic Elizabeth fashion, I rushed into putting it together. And I did look at the directions before you think to yourself, she didn't read the directions. I did actually look at the directions. There were certain aspects that I didn't even know that I was supposed to pay close attention to because there weren't specific details in the book. So the shelf got mostly assembled and but I realized at the very end that it wasn't gonna go together properly, and I tried, so I want you to know this is the shelf that I was showing you, and I tried. I tried to make it work, and as a matter of fact, I still have a spot here that's gonna be an imperfection to remind me of my trying to make it work, and ultimately, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to try to take this apart or figure out which parts aren't correct. And I mean, truthfully, I was being lazy. I didn't want to have to undo everything. So it sat on my floor right over here for a few days. And I looked at it every single time I walked back around to be here at my desk. And so then, and of course, my husband comes over. He's like, "So what's up with this shelf?" I'm like, "Well, I didn't something's not right and I need to figure it out." So finally, I started taking it apart and and even it was frustrating me because no I felt like no matter what I did, no matter how many times I went back to the instructions, it wasn't working. So then it sat on my floor, partially assembled, partially not assembled for a couple of more days. And then finally I yielded just yesterday and I completely disassembled it so that I could figure out how to get the shelf together in the way that it needed to be put together. So, what can we learn from my shelf experience? You might be wondering. Well, when it comes to our thought life, we would benefit from having a clear picture of what we want. Now, there is a picture on this form of what the shelf looks like. And ultimately, how I was able to put the shelf together was to pay attention to exactly the orientation of the shelves. How many, the three on this side, the two on this side. I had to really study the picture. And you know what? In our thought life, we would benefit from having a clear picture of what we want. And we are more likely to achieve better thinking when we have vibrantly described what we want our thought life to look like, sound like, be like, how we desire our thought life to empower us to impact the world around us. Because listen, we have likely rushed into some things that we have created in the process misalignment in our thinking. We've tried to connect things in ways that don't work, like the screw in the spot that wasn't pre drilled. And I'm wondering why the screw isn't going in. Face palm. Here's the thing, we will not escape the need to disassemble our some of our thought life in order to correctly assemble better thinking, or maybe we don't disassemble it but we detour around it if that is the case. So just as a quick reminder of a way in which you can do this from a thinking standpoint, first, you've got to assess your thoughts, right? I had to assess like what's going on with the shelf. How which parts are not matching where, and there were multiple problems with the bookshelf in the original way that I put it together. So we've got to assess our thoughts. Secondly, we've got to determine, is our thinking true or is it a lie? It's not true. So we need to pay attention to our thoughts, then determine truth or lie. Third, we need to reject what is a lie. We need to replace with what is true. And then we need to repeat as many times as necessary to build better thinking. And then step four, we need to get some accountability to ensure follow through. And uh, Fred was helping me with that by asking me about it. And you should have seen his face when he said, "Did you read the instructions?" And I was like, "I read the instructions, but they're not super clear or specific." So, where in your thought life today do you need to create a vibrant picture? You need to study where you are, where you want to go, and look at what needs to be addressed through thinking about your thinking, assessing it to reject or to understand what's true and what's a lie, reject, replace, repeat, and then get some accountability to ensure that you can think better. I got to say, I'm excited to have my shelf on my table for the next event to display my books. And I'm going to remember the lessons that I learned in putting it together. I'm Elizabeth Mahusay, executive business coach, corporate trainer, keynote speaker, and the author of multiple books, but specifically the international bestseller, Pick Your Path. And I look forward to hearing how you are choosing to create a better thought life today.